All right, everyone, welcome back. More notes, more fun. It's chapter 7 this time, talking about non-prime time network programming. Going to break this chapter up into 3 videos, and we'll start off the way any good production should start off, with an introduction. Network Monday through Friday daytime programming has experienced some of the most radical of changes. You see them listed on your screen here. The demise of the soap opera. You don't see as many of them on television anymore. Wonder how come. Second, more programming time given back to the affiliates. Networks not holding on to as much as they used to. And then the rise of the talk show. The rise of the talk show is kind of related somewhat to the demise of the soap opera. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Daytime talk and late night comedy are frequently the most provocative and the most profitable shows on television. Non-primetime shows, generally inexpensive to produce, and carry more ads than primetime. That kind of adds to the more profitable aspect of what we just talked about. So, we'll hit on some of these things in a little more detail. Also, non-primetime audiences are less demographically diverse, making it easier for advertisers to target their commercials. Think about it. During the daytime especially, a certain segment of the population tends to stay home while a certain segment does not. And then at other off times like late night, certain demographics are still awake watching television. Certain ones are not. And non-primetime viewers are often more loyal to their programs. All right, let's talk about the day parts themselves. During the week, Monday through Friday, the overnight hours start around 2:05 in the morning, go into 6 in the morning. Most of that time is going to be covered by news, although NBC did play around for a while with re-airing some late night shows during the overnight hours, but most of the networks tend to go for news. Early morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., the magazine type of show. That's your Today Show, CBS This Morning, Good Morning America, all those guys. Daytime between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., that's the realm of the soap opera, game shows, and various talk shows. Early fringe, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. This traditionally has been the time block for children, for when they come home from school and be able to catch a few cartoons and things like that. Although these days, early fringe tends to be more of a crossover time between daytime and early evening. And most of the content in early fringe these days is going to be provided by the local television affiliates. There's some differences in what happens here in the Raleigh market between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. as you go from channel to channel. For example, WRAL starts its news block at 4 p.m. Most broadcast stations have been starting their evening news around 5 p.m. these days, but some jumping the gun and going to 4 o'clock. So the 4 to 5 hour, there's a couple of different things that goes on. Either there's some syndicated programming. In the case of Channel 17 here in Raleigh, I believe they actually air one of the soap operas that in most stations across the country airs earlier during the day. So there's a lot of different things that happen in that early fringe time. Some other time slots, 6:30 to 7 o'clock, the early evening time slot, that is reserved for the network newscast. And then late night television, starting at 11:35, that is the realm of talk and news. On the weekends, you have children's and magazine type shows that air between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. A lot of stations these days taking the 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. time block and airing a lot of the educational, informational types of programming. Weekend afternoons tends to be the realm for sports, and if you don't have sports on a particular afternoon, it would be covered by various types of lesser syndication and maybe even some infomercials. Weekend late night, the realm of comedy, the realm of music, covering the time slot between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Now, although daily ratings are important to the shows in non-prime time, the key to the battle is to get viewers into the habit of watching weekday non-prime time programs every day or from week to week. So they want to get viewers into that kind of, well, if you want to call it a rut, a habit, fixation, whatever, on particular shows that are made available to them on a very regular basis. Using a low-risk programming strategy, programmers take a more conservative approach to non-prime time, and they do this by limiting production costs and by using tried and true formats. So you're not going to see a lot of experimentation that happens during these time slots. You will see a show that kind of comes up that's a little different from what they've done in the past from time to time, but it's going to be a rather bold move for them to do that. When The View first came on, that was kind of a rather bold move by a network to do something like that as a network during one of these non-prime time slots. But it paid off for them, and then you saw that other shows started coming around as a result. CBS answering with The Talk, for example. Stripping allows viewers to build ongoing loyalty to a series while lowering the financial risks involved in program development. So they carry the same show at the same time slot Monday through Friday. And there are people that make some of these shows appointment television. Some scheduling strategies now. The programmer will juggle two types of audience flow during these non-primetime hours. Flow through and flow across. Flow through, trying to keep audience from one program going into the next one. And then flow across, that you keep that audience coming in those same time slots from one day to the next, to the next, to the next. How that flow is created for news, talk, and magazine programs, continuity comes from the regular presence of a familiar anchor or a host. People tend to gravitate towards those personalities on these types of shows. They really like the people on the Today Show or on CBS This Morning, or they gravitate towards some of the talk show hosts like Ellen. They will create a sense of familiarity with the particular host. Even with game shows, people will tune in because of Wayne Brady or because of Drew Carey on Let's Make a Deal or The Price is Right. Soaps often have a cliffhanger narrative structure that connects each episode with the next. They never completely finish telling the story by the time the hour is over. So it creates that sense of drama that makes you want to know what's going to happen next. Tune in tomorrow and find out. Households using television levels, HUT levels. Many clients cannot afford to advertise in prime time, so creative programming targeted to the right small audience is often very attractive despite the lower HUT levels. This is one of those cases where reaching your target audience may be a whole lot easier to do if your audience is available for certain types of programming at certain times of the day. As far as weekend viewing, longer chunks of leisure time, can offset smaller HUT levels, and weekend viewers wind up spending more time watching television. This is especially true if some of the programming content is such that they stripe hours of a particular program throughout the course of an afternoon, or if you've got various sports broadcasts that are on, people will stay tuned in to watch the content that is there. The struggle for clearances. When a network schedules a program, an affiliated station has three options as to what to do with that program. It can A, clear the program. It can air the program when it is scheduled by the network. It can B, decide to not clear the show, and that is called a preemption. So the affiliate decides they're not going to take that particular program from the network, they're going to air something else on their own. Thirdly, they can ask permission to air the program at a later time, which is called delayed carriage. Instead of airing the show during the time the network wants the show to be run, they'll run it sometime in the future. So because the affiliate has that power to be able to make these choices about the programming that is available from the network, it is in the network's best interest to provide programming that the affiliates want to air and air at the times the network believes it ought to air. Because the more affiliates that carry a program for a network at those particular times, the more it can give confidence to the advertisers for the network in terms of the projections on the viewership of the audience at a certain time. Preemption and delayed coverage disrupt the scheduling strategies used to foster audience flow from one program to another, just like we talked about. It's an issue for advertisers as well because they want to be able to reach those audience members during a particular program, and they want a certain amount of confidence that they're going to be viewing that content at a certain time. And the networks can't always provide that. They'll make some projections as to what advertisers can expect, but it may not necessarily be guaranteed, depending on the particular program and the overall acceptance from the affiliates. Advertisers and demographics. The network programmer's task is to put together a schedule of programs that will, at the lowest possible cost, do these four things. First, attract the most desirable demographic groups. During non-prime time, that's when not everybody is home, so you have to determine what demographics are home and how to best reach them. Secondly, maximize audience flow through. Keep the audience tuned in from show to show to show during the day and to create a consistency in the show's audience throughout a week. Third, build viewer loyalty. As people get used to watching a program, they get connected to the program and make it a habit to watch the show. And then fourthly, capture the largest possible audiences. Do better than your competition at reaching the particular demographic that you are going for. When selecting shows for a particular day part, the networks give primary consideration to these three elements: the demographics of available audiences, the competitive counter-programming opportunities, and economic viability. So they're trying to juggle all three of those things. Now, just because not every demographic is available during non-prime time hours, it doesn't mean that there's not different ones to choose from. So part of what the network has to do is figure out which demographic or demographics they're going to try to reach out to. And they may determine that depending on what the other networks are programming at that time, that perhaps their counter-programming strategies might help them to be able to reach that audience that the other networks are not tapping into. So at the same time, it has to be a saleable audience in order for advertisers to be attracted to that audience. Daytime programming is much more closer in touch with its advertising messages than primetime is. For these reasons, daytime programs contain more commercial minutes per hour. It is not unrealistic to see 22 minutes of commercials per hour of non-primetime programming as opposed to 16 to 17 minutes per hour in primetime. Because many programs were once both sponsored by and produced by advertisers, there's a tradition to sensitivity to advertiser needs. For example, how did soap operas get its name? Soap operas got its name because they were largely sponsored by companies that produced soap. There you go. Networks could not afford to offend the major advertisers of daytime. If you sit at home on any given day and you're flipping through the dial and you're watching Let's Make a Deal and Price is Right, watch who is advertising. It's generally going to be food products, cleaning products, beauty products, and those advertisers mean a lot to the networks because, well, again, there's that limited amount of audience, limited demographics, and it's really in the hands of the advertisers in many ways when it comes to the power of, making sure that they are happy in terms of what's being put out on the networks. So you don't want to tick off the hand that feeds you. Some genres of non-primetime programming includes these here on your screen. Weekend afternoons, largely the playground for sports. Daytime soap operas and game shows during the week. News and magazine type shows in various day parts, especially in the morning hours, sometimes during the midday, and then going into early evening and overnights. Talk shows kind of filling in the gaps with news and magazine shows as well. Saturday mornings and to some extent Sunday mornings, but generally Saturday mornings, where children's programming is going to reside. Again, it tends to be more that educational, informational programming these days as opposed to the traditional Saturday morning cartoons that used to blanket the airwaves on Saturday mornings. And then late night is the realm for music and for comedy. So this is a good point for us to take a break. We will continue on talking about various types of programs and various day parts when we hop over to part B of Chapter 7.